Chapter 1: Meeting Charlotte and the Divine Art of Water. Information trickled in, piece by piece. The ceiling of the stone room was low. A crimson tapestry hung on the stone wall. The window was small, and despite it being daytime, the room was dim. In the back of the room, a fire crackled in the hearth, popping as it consumed the firewood. The sheets of the bed he was lying in were coarse and smelled of straw. He was bewildered, wondering what kind of Western-style mansion he had been brought to. Heave-ho! At his bedside, a young girl bustled about, diligently tending to him. "Where am I?" Feeling a sense of unease, he asked the girl. "Lord Pharma, you were struck by lightning. Can you remember anything?" She leaned in close, peering at him with a worried expression. She looked to be about 10 years old, with an innocent smile. She wore a simple dress with a white apron. Her long, beautiful, and glossy pink gold hair flowed smoothly over her shoulders. A lovely, captivating girl with striking blue eyes, she had a small white cap perched on her head. Is she cosplaying? He wondered, his imagination failing him. He tried to sit up in a hurry, but his completely limp muscles wouldn't allow it. "No, it's just, my memory is hazy. Who are you?" Hearing this, the girl's smile vanished, replaced by a lonely expression. "Could it be you've forgotten me too? You were struck by that strange blue lightning, so it makes sense." "Sorry, but it seems so. Have I lost my memory?" She then cleared her throat, put on a prim expression, lifted the hem of her skirt slightly, and gave a respectful curtsy. "Well then, allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Charlotte, a servant. Please call me Lottie, as you always do. I have served in this mansion since I was a child, along with my mother who was hired by the master. Please ask anything of me, Lord Pharma." It seemed she and her mother were live-in workers in this mansion. As he was thinking that he should report them to the police for child labor, she called out to him again, "Lord Pharma." After being called several times, it suddenly dawned on him. "Pharma? Are you talking about me? What's with that name? It sounds like some pharmaceutical company." He felt a bit strange. Was this a nickname she had just given him? "Yes, you are Lord Pharma de Medicis." De Medicis? He felt it sounded like the French version of the Medici family, the rulers of medieval Florence. The name Medici itself, however, was Italian. After mentally retorting, "Who are you confusing me with? I have a Japanese face," he asked. "Can I see a mirror?" He had a bad feeling that perhaps this wasn't a case of mistaken identity after all. "I'll bring one right away." Even without looking in a mirror, it was obvious this body was different from his old one. Looking at his hands and arms, they were too small. He looked like a child, and his race was different to begin with. When he peered into the small hand mirror, a handsome, fair-skinned boy with blonde hair and blue eyes stared back at him with a dumbfounded expression. No way. Forcing his uncooperative body, he got out of bed and looked out the window. A foreign townscape reminiscent of medieval Europe jumped into view. Outside the window, people in old-fashioned clothing came and went. A bustling market, the sound of bells from a bell tower. His mouth hung open, agape. Worried about his dazed state, Lottie came up from behind and gently patted his back. "Are you all right?" "Sorry, I'm not really all right." If this isn't a dream, does that mean I've been reborn? He was someone who didn't believe in unscientific phenomena like reincarnation, but now that it was happening to him, he had no choice but to believe. How did I die? Was it from overwork? Yeah, probably. He couldn't recall the specific cause of death, but the first thing that came to mind was death from overwork. His working hours had been that brutal. They were beyond the limits of things like flex time or unpaid overtime. If he calculated his work hours calmly, it would have been over 20 hours a day. He had been living out of a sleeping bag in a corner of his lab. Still, it wasn't right to blame his workplace. He had chosen those grueling hours himself, the final fate of a workaholic whose hobby was his job. He had died and been reborn. All right, I have to accept it, he resigned himself. But even so, impossible, I can't just accept this. He still couldn't let go of the faint hope that this was all a dream. Please, let this be a dream. I haven't even written a paper on the data I left behind. He remembered something called a reality check, a way to confirm if what's happening is a dream. He held his breath. In a dream, you wouldn't feel suffocated and could continue breathing. But a minute later, he ended up choking spectacularly. Gasp, cough, cough. As he was dead serious holding his breath, the girl cut into his field of vision. What are you doing? That game looks fun. Lottie looked puzzled, then gave him a bright, carefree smile. For someone in the seemingly miserable position of a servant, she seemed like a cheerful girl. No, it's not a game, though it might look like one. Is this world real? Did I get struck by lightning and regain my past life's memories? As he clutched his head, a slender, girlish hand rested on his arm. It was then that he noticed both of his arms were wrapped tightly in bandages. What is this? Ah, Lord Pharma, you mustn't move so suddenly. Does it hurt? When he unwrapped the bandages, he saw a dark red ointment had been applied to his arms. Wiping it off with a bandage revealed painful-looking keloid scars running from his shoulders to his upper arms, where the lightning's current had burned him. Both arms were the same. Seeing the scars, Lottie covered her mouth with both hands, her pale blue eyes widening. She then made a gesture as if praying towards the wounds.
It looks like the holy crest of the god of medicine. The lightning scars look just like it. The god of medicine must have protected you. If it's a wound from lightning, I think it's a Lichtenberg figure, the branching pattern left by the electrical discharge on the skin. Pardon? Never mind. As Lottie tilted her head with a smile, he rephrased it as, the marks left by the lightning. However, she was convinced it was a holy sign of the medicine god's blessing. She said no one could survive being struck by lightning. Well, she's right about that. Seeing her devout faith, he swallowed his tactless words. He learned it was probably best to keep the marks that so closely resembled the holy crest of the medicine god hidden. Oh, right. I brought some sweets. Please have some. It'll help you calm down. Lottie placed something like a wafer and an empty silver cup in front of him. Thank you. Would you like some? I couldn't. A servant can't possibly eat something so expensive before her master. Despite her words, Lottie looked like she was about to drool. Her feelings were written all over her face. Don't hold back. I'm full in more ways than one. Ooh, well, if Lord Pharma absolutely positively insists, then I'll have some. It seemed that sweets were expensive in this world, something servants rarely had a chance to eat. Lottie's delight was therefore immense. Want another one? Ah, really? Do you absolutely insist? Absolutely. Yes, I absolutely insist. She ate it with such relish that he gave her more than half. Just watching her was a comforting escape from reality. My cheeks are melting. Oh, aren't you thirsty, Lord Pharma? You can still use your divine art, right? May I have some of the water you create? The water you make is so delicious. Lottie pleaded with Pharma, holding out a plain wooden cup. Her every gesture was as adorable as a small animal's. What did you say? Divine art? Water? His voice almost cracked. Having been reincarnated as someone else, his only way to survive was to learn about this world and adapt to it. He knew he had to play along with her, but he couldn't pretend to know what he didn't. Lord Pharma, you were a wielder of the divine art of water. Surely you haven't forgotten how to use it. You were so good at it, she exclaimed, her face growing paler by the second. What will happen to me if I can't use it anymore? I don't even want to think about it, but... She explained that if he couldn't use divine arts, he wouldn't be recognized as a noble, would be disowned by his father, and cast out of the mansion to live as a commoner. I'll keep it a secret. I don't know anything, and I owe you for the sweets a great debt. Lottie waved her hands and squeezed her eyes shut. You don't have to be so grateful. What should I do? Can you leave me alone for a bit? I'll try to remember this divine art thing. His goal wasn't so much to remember as it was to be left alone. Of course, please rest well. She told him that creating water was activated by picturing it in his mind, causing it to well up in his hands. With that, she left the room to do the laundry and run some errands. If everyone found out he couldn't use divine arts, would he be kicked out of the mansion to starve and die on the streets? What could he even do in this world? If he were to be kicked out, he'd have to find a way to make a living before ending up homeless. And so, with nothing to lose, he decided to try and recover his divine art. Water. He cupped his hands and focused his consciousness, picturing water in his mind. Water. As a former Japanese pharmacologist, his knowledge of the water molecule was profound. He could visualize its elemental shape, its energy state diagram, even its spin state as if it were right in his hand. But what good would that knowledge do? Is it no use? It felt like a long time had passed. Then, perhaps heated by his blood flow, something strange began to happen to the marks on his arms. He realized the marks were emitting a powerful pale blue light, as intense as a neon sign. What is this light? With tension and surprise, sweat began to form on Pharma's palms. It was too much to be just sweat. Sweat? No. This is water. Water! The gushing water wouldn't stop. It felt less like it was coming from his body and more like he was channeling power from another dimension. Not wanting to flood the room, he rushed to the window and stuck his hands out. The moment his concentration broke, water erupted like a fountain. Stop, 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 stop. Lottie hadn't told him how to stop it. When he completely erased the image of water from his mind, the creation finally ceased. Whew. He let out a long, deep sigh. Lord Pharma, a soprano voice called from outside. Peeking below the window, he saw Lottie looking up from the herb garden, waving. That water, could it be? You remembered? Sorry, did you get wet? I did. It's cool and feels great. Huh, it started raining, so you saved me the trouble of watering the herbs today. Lottie laughed. Thank goodness. And so, he recovered the divine art of water.